Do you remember the story of the net cast wide? It's found in John chapter 21 and verse 6. Now, after Jesus had risen from the dead and appeared to his disciples, he told them to go fishing. And he said to them, "Cast your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find a large catch." Okay, these men had fished all night long, and it was not an ordinary night either. This was after Jesus had been crucified, so they'd spent all night in the boat fishing. So they did, and the net overflowed because they listened to Jesus. He doesn't say, "You guys have been out here all night. I know you're tired, but just one more cast. Just a little bit longer and then you'll catch something." He didn't say that. Do you know why? Because he knew they wouldn't catch anything if they did that. They needed a miracle, and they got one. Now, what was the miracle? The miracle wasn't necessarily that they caught fish. I believe the miracle was that Jesus spoke. See, they were expecting to catch fish. They were fishermen, but they weren't expecting Jesus to speak, for Jesus to tell them what to do. That was a miracle. Remember, when Jesus directs the net, there's always a catch worth waiting for. They had fished all night and caught nothing. Empty nets. You almost had it last time, but try again. No, he didn't say that. Simply said, "Cast your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find a large catch." In other words, here's what you need to do differently. Shift. Change your direction, change your strategy, and you will succeed. Tired hearts and waves and circumstances seem to be against us. Let's remember the voice that calmed the storm. Let's remember the voice that tells us differently. And let's remember that when Jesus directs the net, there's always a catch worth waiting for. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the background of this story. They had seen him do all these miracles. They knew who he was, but they had denied him. And so here they are, dealing with discouragement, dealing with weariness, dealing with the wind and the waves, and they had caught nothing. And listen carefully to what the text says about their catch. It says that they toiled in rowing the boat because the wind was against them, and yet they caught nothing. The nets overflowed. Now, the nets overflowed not because of their strength, but because they listened to Jesus. Okay? Can you imagine how discouraging that must have been? Here they are working hard, doing all that they know to do, and they aren't even catching anything. But you know what else they were dealing with besides the wind and the waves? They were dealing with discouragement. Because they had followed Jesus. Then Jesus spoke to them. And listen to what he says. But in that moment when Jesus spoke, everything changed. You see, sometimes our efforts feel fruitless. We work, we strive, we try to do things our own way, and we end up with empty nets. But when we listen to his voice, when we trust his timing, he fills what we cannot. And I believe that's what happened in that moment. And listen to what Jesus said. He didn't say try harder, try one more time. It's when we face those moments in our life, when our nets are empty, when we feel like giving up, when the winds. Thank you for watching. If this message blessed you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more faith-filled stories from God's Word. Until next time, keep casting and keep trusting the voice that never fails.